Hi, I'm Truman Terry. Today I'm going to be talking about the history of American football. Did you know that the first ever game was played in 1869, making the sport 150 years old? The first game played was by Princeton and Rutgers, both college teams, but the game they played of football is not comparable to today's football. It was more of a rugby, soccer-like hybrid. And it wasn't until the 1880s that it was more unified, and the man credited for this was Walter Camp. He actually had his own method and is known as the American father of football. And he was a Yale undergrad and a medical student from 1876 to 1881, as well as playing halfback and serving as team captain for his team, and he became a key member of the Second Intercollegiate Football Association, which was reformed in 1876 and existed until 1892. In 1920, the American Professional Football Association became the National Football League, and most know that as the NFL today, and that's what we still have is the NFL, and as our professional sports league. And that brings us to our next topic, which is the NFL. The NFL began playing in 1920, and there was 5 teams from Ohio, 4 teams from Illinois, 2 teams from Indiana, 2 teams from New York, and the Detroit Hells from Michigan. And of these original franchise, 2 remain. The Cardinals left St. Louis and are now located in Arizona since 1988, and the Decatur Stanleys moved to Chicago in 1921, and a year later changed their name to the Chicago Bears. But the NFL ran into many problems. In 1904 alone, the Chicago Tribune reported that there were 18 deaths in 1904 season and 159 injuries, and in the following season of 1905, there were 19 more deaths. So this got the attention of President Roosevelt, and he called for a meeting in October 1905 to reform the league. They shortened games, they had less forward passing, and helmets weren't mandatory until 1939, and the NFL didn't make them mandatory until 1943. The NFL survived many years of instability and competition from rivaling organizations to become the strongest American Football League. The most serious challenge was from the AFL, the American Football League. In 1960s, the NFL and the AFL completely merged together. In the 1970s, created a 26-team circuit under the name of the NFL. Since then, the league has expanded 4 times and adding 6 new franchises. From the NFL, we go to the first ever Super Bowl. Though the NFL was made in 1920, the first Super Bowl didn't happen until 40 years later, which is in 1960. A group of businessmen who wanted their own football franchises but were denied by the NFL decided to not launch another alternative league known as the AFL, the American Football League. And for several years, the NFL and AFL were gridiron rivalries competing for fans, players, and support. Then in 1966, owners negotiated an agreement to merge the leagues by 1970. The first Super Bowl, which featured the AFL and the NFL champions, took place in 1966. The game was originally called the AFL-NFL World Championship Game, which exactly wasn't catchy. The first ever played on January 15th, 1967, was the Green Bay Packers of the National Football League and the Kansas City Chiefs from the AFL. And the Packers went on to smash the Kansas City Chiefs in the first ever Super Bowl. But 2 years later, the AFL proved themselves doubly winners of the first championship when Joe Namath led the New York Jets to upset a 16-7 victory over the Baltimore Colts in the Super Bowl III. In 1970, the AFL and NFL merged into one league as the Colts, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers agreed to join 10 AFL teams to form the American Football Conference, the AFC. Since the Super Bowl has been an annual meeting of the top teams, the AFC and the NFC Conference would fight for the championship of the NFL. To conclude, the American Football League has gone through many changes over time, but throughout all the changes, it has always been the same bases and mottos that has made the sport what it is today. And now it's able to help just more than players and coaches. The NFL is able to give back to communities where the teams are located. I've always thought football was much more than a game because it helps people and it affects many people, and it's just more than football and a sport.